Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're mapping out something absolutely crucial, the complex, pretty chaotic, but incredibly rewarding evolution of scaling a business. We're talking about that monumental journey from being a scrappy solo founder all the way to becoming a high-impact corporate leader. But before we start handing out the CEO mugs, I want you to really think about this number right here, 90%. That is the staggering global failure rate for startups. Let that sink in. 9 out of 10 incredibly passionate founders, often armed with just brilliant ideas, simply do not make it. The stakes are incredibly high, and it really proves that just having a great product or a relentless work ethic, well, it's just not enough to survive. And you know what's really wild? It's where those failures actually happen the most. You'd probably think the tech industry, right? With all its innovation and massive funding, it's gotta be safer. But nope. Academic research shows the information technology sector actually faces the absolute highest mortality rates among new ventures. So a great idea in a booming industry is clearly not a guaranteed survival ticket. Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Why? Why do so many promising ventures just collapse? What's the fatal flaw? Think about your own business, or maybe ones you've worked for. Is it cash flow? Is it bad marketing? Well, as we pull back the layers on some fascinating research and real-world case studies today, we're going to see that the root cause is actually way closer to home. Okay, so here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First up, the startup complexity trap. Second, scaling to entrepreneurial leadership. Third, future-proofing for 2026. Fourth, real-world growth strategies. And finally, we'll wrap up with the ultimate founder test. Let's dive right in. Starting off with Section 1, the startup complexity trap. We're going to look at the academic roots that explain exactly why businesses hit a wall. To ground all of this, let's look at Sunita Sajid's academic research on business model transitions. Her work points to a really profound truth. A startup's survival ultimately depends on evolving its business model alongside the company's growth. Think of it like this. You literally cannot use a Stage 1 blueprint to build a Stage 4 house. The business model has to be continuously reassessed and adjusted. And this brings us to a foundational concept called organizational life cycle theory. It basically tells us that businesses pass through very predictable stages. You go from startup to growth to consolidation and eventually decline. So the big takeaway here is that crossing over from a volatile startup to a robust SME, a smaller medium enterprise, is an evolutionary necessity. It's not just about hitting some revenue milestone. You need distinctly different strategies at every single stage of the game. That necessity naturally brings us to our second section, scaling to entrepreneurial leadership. This is all about the massive internal mindset shift a founder has to make to grow. This is where Saraswati's theory on reasoning is just brilliant. In the beginning, founders use what's called effectual reasoning. They basically look around at the limited resources they have and figure out, okay, what can I build with this? It's scrappy, it's highly experimental, and it's totally essential for a startup. But as the business grows, they have to transition to causal reasoning. This is strategic, it's managerial, and it's entirely focused on building long-term competitive advantages. And here's the crazy paradox. The exact scrappy, resource-driven habits that make a founder successful early on, those are the exact things that will cause them to fail later if they don't adapt to that managerial mindset. Academics actually mapped this out using the TELAC model. That stands for Entrepreneurial Leadership Levels and Associated Complexity. Think of these as the video game levels a leader has to conquer. Phase 1 is a huge jump. You're transitioning from being just an entrepreneur to a true business owner who standardizes daily operations. Phase 2 ramps up the complexity even more. You become an entrepreneurial leader, providing strategic direction and delegating the functional management. And Phase 3? That's the ultimate leap, becoming a high-impact entrepreneurial leader. This person focuses on corporate governance, succession, and global thought leadership, and they step away from daily operations entirely. Okay, so we've looked at the internal mindset. Now let's look outward with Section 3, future-proofing for 2026. Because honestly, even the best leader will fail if they ignore the macroeconomic hurdles heading their way. According to insights from Fairport Trainin, here are the top 5 external challenges SMEs are going to face by 2026. First, massive skills gaps in digital, data, and AI. Second, fighting to retain top talent in a brutally competitive market. Third, the sheer breakneck pace of technology and AI adoption. If you don't keep up, you fall behind. Fourth, rising compliance and regulatory pressures. And fifth, manager burnout from just wearing way too many hats. I really urge you to ask yourself right now, how are these exact external forces going to impact your business model? All right, time to move from theory to reality in Section 4, Real-World Growth Strategies. Let's look at some frontline leaders who actually successfully navigated this expansion. Let's talk about Dr. Arega Yerdal. He's the former CEO of the Midrock Technology Group, which is this massive conglomerate in Ethiopia with 26 diverse companies. His guiding mantra is so powerful. Managers should manage options, not excuses. This perfectly highlights the absolute necessity of decentralized, accountable leadership. I mean, you literally cannot scale to 26 companies if the CEO is making every single decision, right? You have to empower your unit managers to solve their own problems. And pairing perfectly with that is this legendary Peter Drucker quote cited by MERIPodcast, the leader of IE Networks. If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. This hits the nail on the head. Scaling past the startup phase, moving from that scrappy effectual reasoning to causal reasoning, requires rigid, data-driven systems. Gut feelings just do not scale. Measurable data does. So, how did Dr. Arega actually apply this at Midrock? Well, he brilliantly structured his massive conglomerate to maintain agility without creating a ton of corporate bloat. He used strategic portfolio diversification across manufacturing, mining, and education. He entirely decentralized decision-making down to the general managers. And here's the really innovative part. To avoid redundancy, he created a separate management company that provided shared services like HR, finance, and auditing to all 26 companies. He standardized the back end while keeping the front end incredibly agile. Meanwhile, over at IA Networks, MERIPodcast proved that dedicating serious resources to team building is exactly how a business owner scales up. He structured his entire HR lifecycle into 4 dedicated teams: talent acquisition, engagement and training, performance management, and attendance and compensation. They use rigorous tools. We're talking 60-day probation targets, stay interviews to catch when people are feeling disengaged, and constant feedback loops. This is literal textbook level 4 functional management from our Telec model right in action. And that brings us to the climax of today's explainer. Section 5, the ultimate founder test. It's time to turn the mirror back on ourselves. Let's pause for a second and seriously consider MERIPodcast's slightly morbid but highly effective thought experiment. If the CEO was hit by a bus today, would the company survive tomorrow? This forces us to critically evaluate just how dependent a business is on its founder every single day. Are approvals solely waiting on you? Is there essential make-or-break knowledge locked only in your brain? Because if the answer is yes, you haven't really scaled. You've just built yourself a very fragile ecosystem. So what is the crucial takeaway from all the research and leaders we've looked at? Survival requires early documentation. It absolutely requires standard operating procedures, and it requires truly decentralized management. The ultimate goal of the high-impact entrepreneurial leader is to build a robust system that functions flawlessly without their constant involvement. Sharing your knowledge through documentation, that isn't making yourself replaceable. It's making your business sustainable. Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought to end our explainer today. Are you building a scalable business, or did you just create a highly complex job for yourself? I really challenge you to apply today's roadmap to your own journey. Identify where you're stuck and start building the systems that will let you conquer your very next level of growth. Keep learning, keep structuring, and I will see you in the next explainer.